welcome back. Erin Olinger had to leave us. She had an appointment that she was up against. So we've got a few more questions that we wanted to talk about and have these guys kick around. The first one is, what are the most effective ways we are reaching kids and leaders of diverse backgrounds?
I think one of the things I can maybe speak to what is not an effective way. And I think that in Young Life, we have attempted to reach kids and leaders of diverse backgrounds, coming from a position of we've got the answers and we know what's best. And I think we're beginning to look at that approach and go, it's not the most effective way. And I think where we're growing as an organization is starting the question with a question, like going to a kid from a diverse background, or talking with a potential leader of a diverse background and saying, how can Young Life be an organization that could support you, walk alongside you, and start the engagement with a question of seeking to understand and figuring out and letting them speak to us and say, as an organization, where do we fall short in reaching you and your friends, or reaching you as a volunteer? Where do we need to grow as an organization if we're going to be a helpful, positive experience of the gospel in your life or in your world? So it starts with that position, I think.
I think I would add, I think it starts with recognizing your own experience and your own culture. Using the metaphor, it's like we have a set of glasses that we're wearing that we view the world through. Theology, ministry, life, politics, all based on how we grew up in our culture. And if we don't recognize our own pair of glasses, then we can't understand how it's different than somebody else's experience. And so doing the work of understanding your own experience and how that has affected how you view everything through first, and then you can reach kids or leaders and invite them into the ministry based on just your love for them and all of them, their experience as well, whether it's different or the same as yours. But it starts with doing your own personal work.
I don't think there's one box that fits it all either. And when we're talking about diverse backgrounds, I don't think we're just talking about race or color diversity. We're also talking about denominations or lifestyles or socioeconomic levels. You're talking about a wide range, and I think we've made plenty of mistakes in trying over the years, but I think that's part of the process of figuring out what works best on an individual level for leaders, how they can reach out, how areas can reach out, but also just acknowledging that I don't know that anybody can give a specific blueprint on how to do it where you are. It starts with doing. It's just kind of trying. Effort, asking questions, listening, and just being willing and actually wanting your clubs, areas, leaders, students to be different. Actually wanting it. If you don't want it really, I don't think any of your efforts, any of your strategies will actually work if it's not truly something you want.
Yeah, and I would just add two things. One, I would say, start prayerfully and ask the Lord to just lead you to this opportunity, so that it's not you trying to conjure up some sort of tokenistic, diverse outreach, right? That it's really the Lord leading you to a place, whether he leads you to maybe get involved in coaching, maybe you get involved in some other group some way, or maybe you start, varying where you go to church. You get a variety of church communities that you're involved in. Or even within your own church, being open to say, hey, there's people around here that are different than me. Maybe we go to the same church though, so we can start there and have conversations. The second thing I would say is, as you begin to approach, cultures that are different than your own, whether it's denominationally or racially or otherwise, you have to be ready to learn and learn and have an understanding, like Matt was saying, to listen and say, oh, we've had some situations where I lead where we've worked with some Latino students, and their parents' reactions to things were very different. And they were much more protective. They wanted to, before, they wouldn't let their daughter do anything until they got to know us and got to know me and my wife, and so that was something we just had to say, this is a different reality for this family and this experience. And that doesn't mean all people are like that of that culture, but for that, it was like they just didn't let their kids go out with people they didn't know very well. Well, there's other students from our school like had never met me, and their parents just let them come to my house and hang out, and that was fine. And that was just part of their culture's acceptance. And so you have to go, if things are different, let me get some information. Let me get some knowledge. Don't just disparage it or be frustrated by it. Just accept it. This is different. How can I grow in my understanding through this way? So you will be challenged as you go to different cultures of looking at things differently, but that's good. And that's part of something that, this mission is going to help us do.
Just recognizing that who we are wonderfully and perfectly made. The Lord didn't make mistakes, and that includes our culture, our ethnicity, and being okay with that, not trying to be something you aren't. I think that's one of the most attractive things to kids. I don't have to know everything about this culture or this culture or this culture. I think we have the responsibility to try to learn to some degree, but that's not what kids aren't going to be impressed because I know all about their world and all about their culture. They want to know that I authentically know who I am in Christ, who I am in life experience, and that it's different than them, and that's okay because we can be in a relationship, we can love each other, and we can talk about Jesus, and that's really what's important.
Okay, last one. How do the 4 pillars align with the 5 C's of young life?
So the 5 C's are club, camp, contact work, campaigners, and let's go with church. That's a good one. How do they line up with the 4 pillars? The 4 pillars, if you don't already know, the first one starts with our depth in Christ, our pursuit of Jesus. And everything flows from that. In our region, we have this motto that says, healthy ministry flows from healthy people, healthy relationships. And it starts with our relationship with Jesus. So deeper in Christ is our first pillar. Our second pillar is together. How are we loving each other? How are we loving our teams? How are we loving our community, our kids? And how are we, like as we've already talked about, how are we seeking to understand and walk alongside them and love them? The third pillar is innovation. And it's a key one right now because we're trying to innovate our organization around those 5 C's. Like, what is it going to look like in this season of global pandemic and pulling away and isolation and quarantine and all that? And so we are called to innovate, to express the gospel in new ways and express relationships in new and creative ways. And then the last one is growth. And it's, as we have already talked about, growth is going to be, in this season, be measured more about how are we loving Jesus and experiencing his love, and how are we loving each other and experiencing love from one another. That is going to be more the measure of growth as opposed to metrics with numbers of kids at club or campaigners or camp. While we're still walking, moving the mission forward, and we want to reach more kids, growth is going to be expressed in new ways going forward. So that's where I would start.
Anybody want to add anything?
I would just say, for most of us, there was no summer camp this summer. We didn't have that seat. And kids heard the gospel all over our region in different ways in different places. So, yeah, I think without the C's, we can still do that. I think we have to pray hard. I think we have to commit to taking advantage of the opportunities that will be before us. And to your point, stick together. I mean, we need each other. We need encouragement from each other. We need to hear from the sidelines to keep going. So keep going wherever you're at, keep going after kids. And I think it'll look very different, but I think we'll look back and see the Lord's hand in a good way.
I like what you said there about prayer. And I don't want it to be a passing comment, because I think we have 5 C's, we have 4 pillars, but we have one strategy, and that's prayer. And if we could leave anything with you, it is that now more than ever, we need to pray. And I think back of all the times I've done contact work, not as much now, but of all the years of doing contact work, all the times I was told, pray before you go. And I think about all the times I didn't pray before I went. And I think about Young Life now in this season, and I'm thinking we have occasion, opportunity, and the necessity to be praying all the time, given what's in front of us and the mission that we're still called to do.
You guys, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thanks for your thoughts that you've shared. And for everybody watching at home, thanks for putting some questions in and taking the time to do that. Hopefully some of what we've talked about and processed today is helpful. And hopefully, whether it's with your committee or with your leaders, this will spark some conversation and some processing that you guys can do. Like, our hope would be that you would take these things and apply them to your area. So thanks again.